Yes, let's talk about noun phrases and verb phrases. Those are the constituent elements that really would be the foundation of the English grammar. And some people who believe in language universals would assume that would be significant or crucial to the very foundation of the grammar of a particular, basically, language. So the reason that basically we are bringing this up, when you do everyday writer, you have basically a discussion about verb phrases and noun phrases in the parts of speech, so to speak. And definitely not grammatically speaking, pragmatically speaking, grammar sheds light on clarity with which we are saying things, and also it is a vivid depiction of what we have basically in mind. So noun phrases become very significant in that context. So do the verb phrases as well. So let me basically share my screen with you and talking about basically noun phrases. So the noun phrases um, are phrases that constitute the very significant really element of grammar, and they are everywhere. They constitute basically a vast and varied category. So they are varied in structures. The examples, for instance, you could think of binomial, for instance, which is a compound in a way, or two noun phrases such as the life of the party, possessive, the author's views. It could be discontinuous, such as the critique, so on and so forth. So as you could see, there are many categories. As long as you could identify them, that would be really incredible. For instance, you say gold is very expensive. Gold is the NP. Girls are always more. That is a noun phrase. That car is very fast. That car would be an NP. So an NP could be one word, such as car. It could be two, such as the car, or it could be the boys. The entirety of the boys would be a noun phrase, or the three critics. The three critics would be an NP. So in terms of basically functions, NPs can be the subject, such as a student helped me, an NP, or they elected a student. Student would be an NP, which is the objective case. Or it could be, let's say, a complementary. She is a student, that's an NP. So all the accompanying basically dependents would be part of the NP. So there are different types of dependents, such as determiners, the news, that would be an NP, a pair, indefinite article a, and a pair would be an NP, or some cheese. You have a qualifying or quantifying basically words such as some, an indefinite amount, and that is an NP, or two films, or two, or no reason. And complements such as the loss of what? Blood. It is a complement, a ban on what? On smoking or walking in the lawn. And modifiers, a young man, a friend from Boston. So we do have different types of noun phrases. We have singular only, like dress, footwear, perseverance, news, physics. Those that end in S, but they do have a singular function. Police, for instance, which is a collective noun, or cattle, it is considered singular, even though it is a collective noun. Count nouns take cardinal numbers. For instance, one, two, three, or the first basically meeting, the second, the third, the 10th. And some non-count nouns are plurals, such as remains and credentials. So most nouns have both countable and non-countable forms. Would you like a cake? And would you like some more cake? You could see the distinction between the two, a football and play football. So again, you have both countable and non-countable nouns, or I suggested a few improvements, which is countable, and there has been little improvement, which is definitely non-countable. A countable noun usually denotes a class of individual entities, and non-countable nouns typically denote a substance that can be subdivided. So plurality favors the count interpretation, count one, another, each, every, either, that you could basically count. Non-count, words such as much, a little, enough, sufficient. So NPs, as you could see, qualify basically to be of different categories. Now, you could have count nouns without basically determiners. They appear in limited set of special places, constructions. Who wants to who wants to be the treasurer? Rather than a treasurer, who wants to be a treasurer? You don't use the indefinite article. Who wants to be millionaire? Everybody, I would say, but definitely a millionaire would be different from millionaire. So the subject-verb agreement definitely depends on the NP and how you interpret the NP. So, for instance, 10 days is a long time to be on your own. Obviously, this is a whole unit, and therefore you would use is rather than basically was, or rather than are. But if you break it down into subunits, you would say 10 days are a long time. This is basically subdividing the 10 days into every day. Or $20 seems a lot to pay for a pizza. No, this could be, $20. If you count the money, if you break it down, it would take basically a plural verb. So some plural and some singular verbs, depending basically what we perceive to be. If it is a unit, it is a singular verb. If it is a plurality, then we use a plural verb. A lot of money was wasted. In construction like this, a lot of things were wasted. So we look at the verb that is closer to the NP. If the NP is plural, then the verb would be plural. A very good example would be in a lot of money was wasted. Money is singular, so we use what? Wasted. Here we have things, which is plural, as marks pluralization. Therefore, where would be used rather than was. The rest of the meat is over there, the last two examples, and the rest of the eggs are over here. Eggs is a plurality, and therefore we use a plural verb. So when it comes to collective, basically nouns, the committee has interviewed her. The committee as a whole, the committee have interviewed her. We break down the committee. It's not a unit anymore. So this would be definitely something to take into account when it comes to writing grammatically, descriptively, correctly. So we do have basically various forms, such as if you look at examples 12, I feel all the better for my holiday. Determiners as modifiers, the better, Anything that comes after the or a or an would be an NP. So better, even though it is an adjective, but this is serving as a noun phrase. We listed its many failings, many failings. So determiner phrases, not many people turned up, not many people, not many people would be the NP. There were at most 50 applicants, 50 applicants. So we do have also the categories of complements. We also have where you have the NP or PP obligatory. There would be a separate basic discussion about PP, which stands for prepositional phrase. Nouns may license PP complements. For instance, those or these may correspond to subject or object of a clause, such as the warriors return. The warriors, that is NP. And the return of the warriors, that would be a complement. But at the same time, keep in mind this is an objective, or rather, the so-called the warriors return, the return of the warriors. So you have NP here, and then you have a prepositional phrase, and that is why it is called PP, the return of the warriors. The premier attacked, the NP, the premier, and an attack of the premier, which is basically a PP. So subordinate clauses and complements, the claim that he was ill, it is incomplete, and therefore the claim itself is an NP. A suspicion that it was a hoax, a suspicion that is an NP itself. So NPs basically could be in the preposition or postposition. All the children, such a disaster, half a day. It could be internal, such as a long letter. A long letter is, if you want to break it down, the definite, indefinite article, long, which is an adjective, and letter, which is a noun. So the whole thing has NP, even though the category is AP. The category of DPs, determiner plus prepositional phrases, two candidates, the more than 30 basically candidates. Nominal, it could be a brick wall or high octane petrol, or it could be a VP, for instance, the condemned man. Here you have an NP, even though condemned is a verbal phrase. It qualifies or it modifies basically man in this case. So it could be, definitely it is, rather an NP. A recently discovered fossil. So again, you look to the right, and fossil is a noun, and anything that comes before it grammatically would be called an NP. A recently discovered fossil. So it could be post head, for instance, a PP, the tree by the gate. The tree by the gate. By indicates basically a prepositional phrase. Food for the baby. And again, for indicates basically a prepositional phrase. Food for the baby. People fond of animals, which is AP, adjective phrase, but it is definitely an NP. So the broad category is NP, even though we may have adjectives or adverbs modifying basically the noun. So we could also have pronouns, for instance, he, she, they, those are NPs. We could have basically myself, yourself, reciprocal, basically they dislike each other. Each other would be an NP. Interrogation, who saw them? Leave, who? I did, you did. So pronouns are used dichotically and anaphorically, which means basically you can refer to something in the text prior, or you can refer to something that comes after. First and second person pronouns are typically used diacritically. Both you could bear a pin drop in a non-dietic basically use. Could hear a pin. You could hear a pin. So it could be both ways. We also have NPs in reflexive forms as complements. She designed the house herself. Case and pronouns. She is very young, younger than me and I. Kim and I went over there. Kim and me went over there. They invited Sandy and me. Obviously, you don't really make a distinction between the two. I and her, for instance, I and she, which is definitely more proper grammar when it comes to formal English, but informally, it is fine to use it. But the whole thing is, we have NPs. So genitive cases, the teacher's car was stolen. This is an NP. The patient's condition, this is an NP, even though it is genitive or possessive. So we do have basically different categories, as it was mentioned earlier. So you may want to quickly review this. You don't have to really comprehend all the categories, but know that NPs basically would be crucial to the idea of making a typical basically sentence. Now let me change gears and go to verb phrases. So the verb phrases like NPs occupy basically many domains. And it might be interesting for you to know that in English, because of the complexity that VPs involve in all languages, perhaps because of their frequency or because of their lack of frequency or complexity, you don't really see them as much in the early vocabulary or interactive, basically, grammar of young children. So verbs basically are inflected in English as well. For instance, if you look at the lexeme drive, it occurs in examples such as Mary has driven an old car, Mary drove the same car, Mary drives the same car. So the verb paradigm itself in English basically would contain many forms or several basically forms. Let me just talk about basically the taxonomy of verbs. We have lexical verbs, we have modal or modal verbs, we have dual classified verbs such as need, do, dare, and we also have helping verbs or auxiliaries. So now this is very important to keep in mind that auxiliaries carry tense, aspect, mood, and voice, and it will involve a subject, verb inversion, and negation. So let's just talk about tense. The question is, how many English tenses do we have? Some of you may come up with 10 or 12, and some of you may say 4 or 5, but definitely English has only two tenses, present and past tense. And if you are wondering if will would qualify, it is a modal basically verb which is used for futurity. I will leave tomorrow. But you could also use present tense. For instance, I am leaving tomorrow. So it is present use, which is used for future meaning. There are also four aspects in English: simple, progressive, perfect, and perfect progressive. Now, in terms of moods, we have indicative, basically, most English sentences are indicative sentences, subjunctive, and imperative. So, for instance, I'm teaching you a lesson in tense. That is indicative. I'm making an assertion. Subjunctive, it is essential for you to learn this. It is essential that you learn this. That is a subjunctive form. It is important that you learn, you practice this. And imperative, study this. It is beneficial. Or bring me a glass of water. It is imperative. You order someone, you request something to be done. And the degree of basically the force of the utterance would vary depending on the situation, the participants, and their roles. So in English, we usually have two voices, active and passive. So John broke the window, which is active. The window was broken, and if necessary, by John. So uh, tense is the expression of time of an action or state. So grammatical tense only roughly relates to time. English has only two verb tenses, present and past tense, as it was mentioned. Verbs are either inflected for tense or marked by an auxiliary. So we will be looking at some examples which would be more revealing. She read the report. When reference is made to the internal, basically structure and decision, it is imperfective. She was reading a report. Is different. She was reading. So the auxiliary in this case is was, and this is past tense. And because the verb ends in ing, then this would be past progressive, as opposed to she read the report. Now, of course, when you read this, you pronounce it as read, which is past tense. You could put it into negative form. She did not read the report, so it is past simple. What is the auxiliary? The auxiliary, even though here it is absent, it is did, so it is past simple. She was reading a book. She read a book. So she read a book. The action was completed. She was reading a book in progress in the past tense. She was reading a book when I came in. You have two tenses, past and basically past progressive. So English has four aspects, so to speak. We have simple, progressive, perfect, and perfect progressive. The default aspect of the simple present and simple past tenses would be not to have the auxiliary in the positive basic form. I drink coffee every day. That is an example. But the auxiliary is there. Turn it into a question. Do I drink coffee every day? That auxiliary carries tense, so it is present tense. I drank coffee. Did I drink coffee? I didn't drink coffee yesterday. So the auxiliary would be did, so it is past tense. So in terms of the grammatical structure, if we have basically I'm reading a book, again, the auxiliary is am, and reading, ending in ing, it is present perfect, or rather present progressive. And you have be plus the ing form of the verb. And that applies to present tense and past, so on and so forth. I have read the book. If I give you basically this example, you would be wondering if this is past tense. So you would say, oh, this is past participle. But we always look at the auxiliary, and the auxiliary here is have, and therefore it is present perfect. This is present tense. I have and read, which is the so-called past participle. So this is present tense. If you want to turn it into past, then you would say, I had read the book, meaning that you have had, which is past tense, auxiliary, and read, which is the past participle. So in short, when it comes to the perfect aspects, we have, has, and had plus the past participle. So these actions basically could be completed or incomplete, or they may have an effect in the present time. So, for instance, reading and feeling, past participle, en forms, we have irregular verbs. Not all the verbs end like play in ed. Drive, drove, driven, begin, began, begun, so on and so forth. So modal verbs, basically words such as can, could, might, may, they express basically an action or state of mind. They express basically various forms. They could be epistemic. She must have been sick, or she must have liked basically red and blue. She was wearing that yesterday as well. It's a logical conclusion. Or she always shows up. She didn't show up yesterday, so she must have been sick. It could be compulsion. She must go now. You have to go now. And she can swim, which is more the question of ability. And so we use really modal verbs for possibility, necessity, advisability, logical conclusion, lack of necessity, such as she didn't have to come, but she did. There was no compulsion, contingency, futurity. She may come, which is 50%, and futurity, she will come. We do have, these in the present tense and the past forms, such as must have, had to, should have, would have. If I were you, I would have basically called him. So English has, again, this is a review in indicative, subjunctive, and imperative. The indicative mood would be things such as assertions, denials, and questions of actuality or strong probability. Most sentences in English, as I mentioned earlier, are indicative because the indicative is the most commonly used mood. I read the book, and the question, did you read the book? This is all indicative. The subjunctive, it's commands, requests, suggestion, wishes, hypothesis, purposes, doubts. So what is significant to keep in mind is the form of the past subjunctive is identical to the plural simple past indicative. In other words, it is basically, if I were you, I would call him. The report recommends that he face the tribunal. So again, he face rather than faced. It is important that they report, not reported. So tense is indicated by the first element, not the second element. The second element or the second verb is always the base form, which basically means it doesn't indicate tense. Now, the imperative forms come here at once. Don't you use your cell phone during class? Or I would appreciate if you didn't use your phone. Would you mind using your cell phone? Would you please open the door? Could you pass me the salt? These are all different forms of basically requests depending on the age, the status, the socioeconomic status, and the relationships basically involved. These are imperative basically forms. So a typical English sentence is really NPs and VPs combined. So as you could see indicated here, a sentence is NP plus VP. So because we are focusing on VPs now, it could be a verb followed by an NP, such as postpone the trip. The trip could be further basically broken down into the trip, postpone the trip. Took the money in the morning. So as you could see, here you have in the morning, which is a prepositional phrase, in, P, and the morning would be NP. The would be the determiner, and N, the noun, would be morning. The girls, the boy in the yard. Now, this is a complete sentence. The noisy children played in the yard. The noisy children would be the NP. VP would be played. In the yard would be a prepositional phrase. Now, this is shown through this process. So a typical sentence is NP plus VP, NP. Now, this is a tree diagram of that particular sentence, if it makes it easier. So you could see the hierarchical structure, how a sentence basically comes to be. So grammar, in essence, is hierarchical. And not only it is hierarchical, but you will basically make an infinite number of sentences. You could say the noisy people, for instance, cried on the street, in the street. You could make an infinite number of sentences. The librarian put the book on the shelf. This would be a tree diagram. And this is more complicated. The small boy saw George with a crazy dog recently. So as you could see, every basically branch of the tree occupies a particular basically place. You have a subject, NP, and then you have the VP, and within the VP, you have the NP, George, and then PP, which is a noun phrase, and recently, which is an adverb. So we do have two kinds of structures, the deep structure and surface structure. The deep structure is an abstract level of structural organization in which all the elements determining structural interpretation are represented. Sentences that have alternative interpretation, sentences that have different surface forms, but have the same underlying meaning. For instance, a typical sentence, John gave me the pen. Did John give me the pen? Would you mind, John, give me the pen? So on and so forth. So the deep structure is how the sentence is actually represented itself. And then the changes that it primarily goes through would be the surface structures. So obviously they have the same. The window, Charlie broke the window, and the window was broken by Charlie. Charlie, who broke the window, is here, was the window broken by Charlie. So these may appear to be superficially different, but their deep structure basically would be the same thing, that Charlie broke the window. Whether you use active voice or use passive voice, it is clear once you know grammar that essentially you could retrieve the original sentence as it was. Now, English, like other languages, has ambiguity. So Annie whacked the man with an umbrella. The same surface structure, but different deep structures. Is it the boy saw the man with a telescope? Is it the boy with a telescope who saw the man, or the boy saw the man who had a telescope? Definitely context disambiguates. So structural ambiguity refers basically to this, beginning with basically where you place the NP, so to speak. The girl saw the man with the binocular. Was the man with the binocular, or was it the girl? So if you wanted a different interpretation, then the NP would be here. For instance, the girl with the binocular the NP would be here, saw the man. So these are two different, basically, interpretations. Again, I talked about recursiveness. Rules are recursive because an infinite number of sentences could be constructed using the same grammatical form. So we have the apple was on the tray near the vegetable. It could be basically restated in so many different ways. Mary kissed John, John kissed Mary, Mary kicked John, John kicked, basically called. And, you have an innumerable circumstances where you would use the same structure, noun phrases and verb phrases, and you could make an infinite number of sentences. This is called the recursive quality of the English, basically, grammar, which many languages have. So embeddedness, this is the man that spied on the girl that reported that her friend had stolen the watch that she had tried on in the store. This is when basically you end up with run-on sentences because of constant embedding. So it's a good idea to break down the sentence and not to use so many embedded sentences. So Alberto called Mary. I mean, you could basically change that. Recursion allows that. Sentence within a sentence. Embeddedness would allow basically that. The word that introduces, for instance, a complement. That Faith wants Tom to be sure that Faith thought that Tom was sure that Alberto had called Mary. So anytime you use that in that particular context, it has to be followed by a particular sentence. So that Tom was sure that Alberto had called, not to confuse that with the demonstrative one. That man is coming, referring to the man. The man, that is my uncle, that is complement because it connects basically two sentences. So a typical sentence again would be NP and VP. And VP, you have VP and plus basically CP, which is a sentence, and so on and so forth. So we definitely could change the rules within basically reason, phrase structure rules, deep structure within a set. Albert called Mary recently. Recently, Alberto called Mary. It would be, the same. So you don't have to worry about the exercises. So the purpose was really to show you how, for instance, the meaning is created rather than a priori through the combination of noun phrases and verb phrases. So with that introduction about the significance of noun phrases and verb phrases, I end this presentation.